Welcome back to Michigan Football Network, your home for Lions, Wolverines, and Spartans news. Today we will be covering mostly the Lions and OTAs, things like that, because that's where we're at right now in the off season. OTAs are picking up, training camp is picking up, not OTAs. We're past that point now, thankfully. But training camp is picking up now, and we got some things to talk about. First thing, which is not really relevant to the football situation, but we have some bad news for the show. Riverside is no longer allowing live streaming to YouTube, so we will have to figure something out in the future. So, for those of you watching live now, and or are expecting to see the post on YouTube, it probably won't come for a little while. So we're gonna have to see how this is gonna work. But with that, let's jump right into what we have for today's show. Which, first of all, Jahmyr Gibbs signed his extension, which is funny enough. We were gonna do this show on Wednesday, and I was like thinking to myself, I was like, with our luck, Jahmyr Gibbs would sign on Thursday. And then we'd have to do another show on Friday just to talk about that. And so I said, well, let's just hold off till Friday and see what happens because rumors were starting to pick up and things like that there was a real chance that a deal gets done on Thursday. So we waited and it worked out for us and worked out for Gibbs and the Lions as he signs a new extension, 3 years, 67.5 million with up to 75.75 million with 51.5 guaranteed. Which, if any of you guys saw the tweet on our X or Twitter profile. I was going to say channel. I don't know why. I think YouTube's on the mind. But right now, if you go on our X, there was a tweet on, I think, Wednesday or maybe early Thursday where I gave my prediction, and we were literally $3 million off. So I think this was kind of like what everybody expected, you know what I mean, in terms of the type of money that Jahmyr Gibbs was going to get, especially coming directly after Bijan and Jonathan Taylor got their extensions. And I think that's why he was holding out. I think he was just waiting to see what they got and he wanted to top it. And he barely did, to be honest. I mean, obviously he did get more money than Bijan, but it's only 0.75 million over the entire contract, which is awesome because a lot of the time when guys come out and they want this new big deal, they're going to want 5 million more per year than the other guy got. So I am personally happy he is locked up through 2030, and the best part is his new deal does not kick in until 2028 or 2020. Yeah, new deal doesn't kick in until 2028. So I mean, we're kind of doing well right now. That money's not even going to matter for 2 years, which is kind of the thing we keep seeing with our extensions, which works out really well for us because now we're going to have a decent amount of cap space next year, to add to an already really talented team. Depending on what happens with a few of our guys too. I mean, we might be looking for replacements for some of those really talented guys as well.
Yeah, I really kind of had a change of heart about this whole Gibbs situation just because obviously I wanted to keep him. Like he's one of, if not the best back in the league. But I am pretty, or I should say, I was pretty entrenched in the don't pay running backs camp. Um, a lot of teams who give a lot of money to their running backs tend to, I don't quite want to say fizzle out, but not hit the peak they once did when they were taking up a smaller portion of the cap. But you kind of opened my eyes to a different way of looking at it, especially with the new way running backs are today, as opposed to the traditional running backs of years past. Gibbs as clearly a pass catcher as well as a running back. You know, he's not just a running back. And running backs as a whole have kind of gotten away from the old school. You run like 250 times, but you might have like 10 catches because that's what the league used to be. So when you just think of Gibbs as an offensive playmaker, he's getting 22.5 per year at the base because obviously, as you mentioned, there's incentives he can earn more. And I compare that to Zay Flowers, who just signed for 35 a year. So if you tell me would I rather have Gibbs and 12.5 million in cap space or Zay Flowers, I would be taking Gibbs. And to be honest with you, if they were the same price, I would still take Gibbs. So I know he is a running back and he's getting paid the running back market value, but he's not just a running back. So if you look at it, as you mentioned to me a couple months ago, they really opened my eyes because I'm like, yeah, especially with how much money these receivers are making. I mean, some of these guys are making 40, 50 million a year, and Gibbs is getting less than half of that, but having a significant impact on the game nonetheless. So yeah, I am actually going to be all for this. With that different mindset, I kind of think this might even be a steal, which is kind of a weird way to look at it unless you use that perspective, because this dude just got paid the most money of any running back in NFL history, and I'm sitting here saying it might be a steal. That doesn't normally kind of go together with one another, but like I mentioned, when he is in total yards almost doubling Flowers and getting paid 60% of Flowers, like it's not a bad deal. So what coming from a former don't pay your running backs that much because there's a dime a dozen running backs, and while there's always been obviously a top 4 or 5 running backs that everyone wants to have on their team slash fantasy football, um, it's important to kind of adjust with the times. And not trying to kiss ass here, but I do appreciate you opening my eyes to that kind of a newer mindset, because I do think once you kind of pointed that out to me, that is correct. He does bring a lot more to the table than just some handoffs, especially after we let David Montgomery go, because there's no way in hell we could have let Montgomery go and then not signed Gibbs. Like I mentioned all last year, I do like Sailors, but he is not running back one, or even two with Pachenko. But Pachenko's had his share of injuries, so we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you. Honestly, I would even take Gibbs if you swapped their numbers. If it's Gibbs 35, Zay 25, I'm like, I think I'm still gonna go Gibbs, man. I think he's just that much better. Like, and I think it's kind of lucky for us in this way that, obviously it all has to work out with injuries and things like that. But as long as Gibbs plays this contract out with the Lions, I mean, I definitely agree with you. I think this is a steal based on how much he's going, excuse me, based on how much he's going to do for us on the field. It's definitely worth the money. And like I said, this money doesn't kick in for what, 3 years, guys? I mean, think about that. In 2028, do we really think $23 million a year is going to be crazy for a running back? I don't think so.
Gibbs, no.
I don't think so at all. I
I
think
mean,
that's
no.
going to be like, I think he's going to be like the eighth highest paid running back. Maybe. He might even be lower than that, if I'm being honest with you, just because of how those numbers always just keep going up. I mean, we've seen it happen where, it was crazy 5 years ago to give a wide receiver 20 million. Now they're getting 50. I mean, dude, it's like the money is insane. But with that being said, speaking of money in future and things like that, the Lions have pretty much locked up every single key piece for the future, other than Laporta and Branch. Right now, those are the only two guys that we consider to be quote unquote key pieces of the Brad Holmes era that are not under contract through 2029 at least. And I would expect them to wait on both of them because both of them are coming off some injuries, and we have a little bit of time to wait. Gibbs was a pressing need because he needed the money. If I'm being honest with you, it's one of those things that like a lot of people are gonna say, oh, if he doesn't get paid this until 2028, why did he hold out of practice? Well, he's gonna get the bonus right now still, so it's like he gets all that upfront money and then he doesn't have to worry about it. But with that, like I said, Laporta and Branch coming off injuries, we're gonna have to see what their contract ends up being, how they work that out. Which I don't really think it's going to be a too big of a talking point this season, outside of what's Branch going to look like when he comes back from that Achilles. Because I do think everybody wants to keep both of them as long as they are playing well when they're healthy. And I do think at this point, I think Laporta is probably more likely to be the one that we keep if we have to get rid of one of them, simply because Branch is coming off an injury, and I honestly think Laporta is going to take like a decently team friendly deal. I don't necessarily see him, trying to be the top paid tight end in the NFL. Whereas Branch, I could see trying to be the top paid safety and it's not like he's not worth it, but that's just kind of how I see it shaking out.
Yeah, I feel like we need both of these guys, and I hate to always give some kind of cop out answer, but with Kirby's health up in the air, we need a safety. Might arguably need two safeties, depending on how Branch looks when he comes back. Because if, to be fair, if Branch doesn't look like what he used to, or whatnot, then we wouldn't give him that record-breaking deal, of course, and then we could just give it to Laporta, and all this is moot. But I do also think Laporta, if I had to pick one of the two, it would be Laporta, just because this team is built on the offense. I hate to beat the Drew Pensing drum before we even see him, but obviously everyone knows what he did with McBride and all that. Laporta's improved every year that he's been here, even though I know his stats dipped his sophomore year, but that was just because the defense, in my opinion, was shifting more towards him and whatnot. Not only that, but JMO stepped up from that point and was getting more of a target share as well. You only have one ball, so that's why the stats dipped a little bit, even though his talent did not. But with Kirby's health in the air, I don't know. Let's say Branch comes back and plays well, we really need at least one good safety. Um, I mean, at a minimum. So that might be a tough situation, but maybe they can backload it. Brett Holmes has been able to get these deals done so far, so maybe there's just a way if you can backload it or with bonuses or guarantees. They'll find a way to get it done if they are both healthy enough to continue. Because I know Laporte has been dealing with a little bit of a back issue, and I know they said he's 100% cleared and whatnot, but backs can be finicky and flare back up and whatnot, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. Like you said, especially the back injury, it's kind of up in the air. And like we said, it's probably not going to be that big of an issue throughout this upcoming season. So we'll just kind of take it as it comes. But with that, the Lions have actually made some more additions to the team since we last saw you guys. Obviously, they signed linebacker Devin White, who last year, had 174 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and an interception. Looking at his PFF grade, I think he had like a 41. I don't necessarily obviously take PFF as the gospel, but I also will say, like, playing on a bad Raiders defense, getting a bunch of tackles, I don't know if that necessarily means he's going to come here and be that kind of guy. So I don't want people to get too excited about the addition, because usually there's a reason guys are still available in August. And it's usually not because they're awesome football players. Not to say Devin White's not, because I do think he will play a role here, and he will play that role really well. And I do think he will probably, push for that third linebacker spot. Especially because of his, just athletic ability and ability to cover and things like that. I do think that obviously, oh my gosh, his name is escaping my mind right now. The other
Who's
Damon Clark, the other
okay?
linebacker, the other athletic linebacker that we
The
signed,
other
who,
LSU linebacker.
right, true, who they play very similar, styles. So we'll kind of see how that works out with them too. But like I said, I do expect White to kind of push for a third linebacker spot, especially with Rolder dealing with some injuries here. But I do really like the addition of White because, like I said, he's not going to be, an elite linebacker, but he will probably play pretty well for us. And he kind of gives us what we like with his, play style, that fast, athletic linebacker that actually does play downhill pretty well. Because normally those guys are kind of like, we play coverage and we aren't very good at getting off of blocks, where Devin White's pretty good at that. So that's the positive. Now, the negative is like I said, I don't want to get my hopes up too much and expect him to come in here and be the freaking second linebacker next to Jack Campbell and put up 150 tackles. I just don't see that necessarily happening, but we'll have to see, obviously, with how he gets used and things like that. We've talked about on the show, like our defense looks like it's changing, which we'll talk about a little bit later too when we get to training camp, where we might see a little bit more linebackers on the field and things like that. So I really like the pickup personally. That's my 2 cents on it.
Awesome. And for the first time, let's see, 1 second. Sorry, I have to enlarge this to see. It took about 15 minutes for us to disagree on something. I love this signing, and I'm not saying you obviously don't like it, but I love this signing. I do think he can be that 150 tackle guy next to Campbell, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying run to your local sports book and put money on it, but I do think that might happen. And he's been making plays all camp. Granted, that's a week, but he's been making plays all week. And I was kind of shocked, as you mentioned, to see that he was still available this late. There is, from time to time, vets that do want to wait for a particular situation as opposed to just, who's going to give me a job. And I feel like he will fit in very well with Campbell. As you mentioned, White had 174 tackles last year. Campbell had 176. So, for league purposes, that is second and third in the league. So the Lions have two of the top three tacklers statistically from last season. But I am really intrigued by this just because of the iron sharpens iron embrace that the Lions have really done this offseason. They said it for a few off seasons, but I've seen it more and more this year, and I don't want to go on a tangent with that because I can talk about that for a minute. But I've noticed a lot more, I would say, players coaching. There was a article slash a well, there's an article written about the video, but there was a video posted on X of JMO showing Rakestraw a anti-press technique that he's been using to beat Rakestraw off the line. And then Rakestraw utilizes it, and JMO has to adjust. So the teammates making each other better. And that is kind of what I'm seeing also with this linebacker group, because not only is Devin White just, I mean, a good linebacker, top three in tackles, he played all 17 games, I should say started all 17 games last year, even if it was for a bad Raiders team. Almost called him Oakland. Vegas. And, like, not too long ago, he was a Super Bowl champion, and not just on the team. Like, he was one of, if not the main linebacker there. And yes, I know he didn't do it alone. But I am really intrigued by this, as well as Barnes, as well as Rodriguez, Clark, as you mentioned, of course, Campbell, who's improved year after year. And as you know, and as any football mind knows, not only do we have a more talented linebacker group, but we put more talent on that D line in front of them, asking the linebackers to do a little less slash free them up a little bit. So I do think Devin White can come in here and be that 150 tackle guy. And I was really almost refreshing, I would say, to see a post practice interview with him saying he realizes, like, right now he's like linebacker 5 or 6, and he's got to earn his stripes to move all the way up. But with that veteran mindset and with his still great capabilities as a stat show and whatnot, I don't have any doubts that he will do that this year.
Yeah, and it's funny because even when we do disagree, we don't really disagree because at the end of the day, we both like the signing. It's just you like it a little bit more than me. And I will say, I don't think that's impossible. That's kind of what I was getting at was like, do I see it being probable? Maybe not, but do I see it as a possibility? Definitely because
Drink the
like
Kool-Aid.
because look, he's a former first round pick. Like you said, he was a very key piece on a Super Bowl team. Do I think in my opinion, right? I think this is where we differ. I think, in your opinion, his peak is like he's one of our better defensive players, period. Would I be
Yes.
wrong? Okay. I think his peak is like he is the best, or should I say, the most underrated signing for us of the entire offseason. Because I think at his peak, he's going to have like probably somewhere around 100 tackles. I don't think he'll have 150 because having two guys with that's like kind of insane. But I don't think he will have that amount, but I also don't think he'll play the amount of snaps to have that amount, even if, we did have two guys. But I see him being a disruptor. Like, I see him being a guy that comes in and, like, makes big plays and big moments for us that could potentially propel us to a Super Bowl type situation because that's what you need, in my opinion. Like, a great team, right? They can go like the Buffalo Bills, for instance. They go to a Super Bowl 4 times in a row and they lose 4 times in a row. If they just had one guy that could make a couple plays in a couple situations, maybe they go 2-2. You know what I mean? So I think White could be that kind of guy for us, where like not an unsung hero necessarily, but a guy where people after the season, like let's say Lions win the Super Bowl, everything like that, people are like, man, maybe Devin White was a big reason why. So that's my thoughts on it. I don't think we're that far apart. Is my point there. Now moving on, we will rapid fire a few things because just some like news that we don't necessarily need to comment on too much. But the Lions signed defensive tackle Ben Still, which two career sacks, five teams in his career, and he's 28 years old. Now, do I think that he is a terrible football player and won't make, definitely won't make the roster? Not necessarily. I don't think he will probably end up being on our 53, but we'll see. Then we also signed another linebacker, Troy Reeder, who is another athletic type of guy. I don't know about him either. He's kind of a special teamer, though, so he does have a little bit of a chance, in my opinion. And then running back Raheem Blackshear, solid depth. I mean, Vaki went down with an injury, and we needed a fourth guy, third/fourth guy. So we got that, and I wouldn't be surprised if we keep him, honestly, because we've talked on this show already many times. Our backup running backs are kind of weak now that Monty's gone. Like I like Pacheco, don't get me wrong, but the guys behind him, it's like we got some undrafted free agents and a guy who used to play safety. Don't necessarily feel the greatest with that if Gibbs were to be out for a game or something. Like, let's say he's out for like week 16. I mean, we've talked about the schedule on the show. That last 4 games is horrible. If he's out week 16, it's like, damn, it's going to be in for a hurting these last, game or two. So, especially when it comes down to a big game like that. So, I really like the pickup of Blackshear. I do think he might be a little underrated. Obviously, his stats, there's not a lot there, but he averaged around 4 yards a carry throughout his career on 52 carries. So, not a lot of opportunity over, 3-4 years, but he's done a little bit with it. So, and then we hired a new president, Richard Haddad. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Former Pistons COO. So, familiar with the Detroit, sports business scene, which is always a good thing. And he replaces Rod Wood, who was our president for a long time. I mean, as long as I can remember, honestly, I cannot remember another guy as the Lions, CEO president. So, kind of an end of an era there, which is kind of wild, in my opinion. Kind of weird seeing that happen.
Yeah, I'm quickly going to search who was here before him. I do remember someone before him, but you're correct. It's been a while. Um, so I just wanted to see. Of course, my phone is not getting signal. But then while I look that up, I'll comment on Ben Still. I, I'm not going to drag the guy, but looking up his stats to try to see what he's about, because, I mean, what else would you do when you hear your favorite team signed a new player? Underwhelming was polite. In 18 games, he has 17 career tackles. He's been on 5 teams, as you mentioned, at only 28 years old, so he's just bouncing around. I feel like he's a camp body. I mentioned in the last segment, we've really added to that D line. Um, 2015, Tom Lawan. I remember him. He was with was it Caldwell? Yeah. But anyways,
Hmm. Oh yeah,
Blackshear.
yeah. I do remember him.
Yeah, I would know his name when it happened, but I'm like, yeah, it's been 10 years, so
Hmm.
throw me a bone on that one. But yeah, I remember his name now that I see it. Blackshear is not bad. I think he's the only one of out of Still, Reader, and Blackshear that has a chance to make the team. As you mentioned, our running back depth is not as desirable as we would hope. I do like Sailors as a number 3 to 4, but that is as a number 3 to 4 kind of return reserve guy. I don't think I don't think his ceiling is that of a future starter. I feel like he's kind of our new Craig Reynolds, so to speak. He can fill in here and there, but if he's your starter going into the week, might be a pass-heavy offense that week. And then, what was the other guy? The new
Reader.
CEO.
Oh yeah.
Reader, unfortunately, I don't know anything about. I
Hmm.
tried to look up some of his stuff, and nothing really jumped out to me. But the new CEO, as you mentioned, he has, I thought it was 10 plus years with the Pistons. So as you mentioned, he's at least been around the Detroit scene. And I'm not gonna lie, I can't pretend I know what the difference between a CEO and COO is. So I don't know how
So
different.
a CEO is chief. economic officer or something like that. Well, basically, if think about it this way, CEO runs the company. The COO is more in charge of like the actual financials.
Okay, I'm like I thought. Okay, I'm like I know the COO was I hate a pencil pusher, but yeah, I don't know exactly what differences having him as president over Radwood is going to really make.
Probably
But
nothing for us, to be honest with you. That's going to be more like tickets, like jerseys, like, and it probably won't make that big of a difference because I assume most of that's coming from the owners anyway. So like, I doubt we will notice, to be honest.
so be it.
But yeah, I mean, with with that, it's still kind of weird to see Rod Wood move on after being a part of the team for so long. But at the end of the day, like it really doesn't change too much for us as fans. Maybe, fingers crossed, they lower those freaking ticket prices a little bit because holy shit, guys! Looking at freaking TickPick, which shout out TickPick, I love them. That's the only place I buy tickets from because Ticketmaster gouges. But they have no fees, which we're not even affiliated. That's just a free shout out. I just love to use them. But anyway, uh, going on there, it's like every home game's $200 to get in the door, but then we play the Cardinals and it's 50, or we play the Falcons and it's 90, and it's like, okay, can we kind of $150 even? I would be like, okay, that's a little bit more respectable, but $210 to sit in the freaking nosebleeds is insane. So if you're listening, which I doubt you are, lower the ticket prices, please and thank you. But with that, moving on to some injury news, some not so good news. Obviously, you know, Mahogany, Manu, and Izian are starting on pup, which is not great. Izian specifically is a guy we really, you know, have talked about on the show a lot as thinking he was going to be a big impact player for us. So hopefully he can get back pretty quick. And then updates on Branch and Kirby. Basically, Dan, the last thing that I heard, Dan was saying like they're on the similar trajectory. They're kind of following the same plan. So that's not good news. It's not bad news. We'll just have to see. I personally don't love that Kirby Joseph with a knee problem is following the same trajectory as someone who tore his Achilles. I'm not going to lie, that does scare me a little bit. But we'll just have to see. I mean, I feel like we've speculated for months and months and months on how these guys are going to come back. And personally, I'm just ready to see it happen. Football is back, and I am tired of talking about it. I just want to watch it on the field play out. Like last night's game was awesome. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but it was a freaking preseason classic, buddy. And dude, yesterday for me, kind of off topic, but yesterday for me was a football day from start to finish. Like getting up, doing a bunch of work for coaching. Then we had a equipment handout and a parent meeting and a staff meeting, and then I got home to watch that game, like literally just in time. It was like 8 hours straight. So I am ready. I'm ready to see some Lion football, baby, and even preseason, I'm excited, but
Less
really,
than a week,
week
man.
one, whew, yeah, true that. Less than a week, and we are there. But yeah, so with that, maybe week 4 to 6, Kirby and Branch will be back. We'll see. I'm gonna say probably past week 6, just because I don't want to get my hopes up. But we'll see. Like I said, I feel like I've said that so many times on this podcast, but that's where we're at, dude. It's August 7th. There's really not a lot that we know from injuries, so.
Well, I do have a slightly bit of good news. Because I just had to look it up to confirm, but Mahogany and Izian are no longer on the pup.
Mm.
So they are back on the active. So Manu is still there, and I know they said Manu is going to miss quote unquote some time. They made it sound like a 10 plus a week injury, and absolutely no disrespect to Manu, but that does not affect the Lions.
Mm-mm.
Um, I did not see him making the team out of camp. I know we signed uh, Barch and Mays and Borum, and I know I'm going all the way across the O line, but Manu as a project would try to fill in anywhere, I'm sure, to just have a job, and I just don't see a single position on the O line where he's a top four guy. It just hasn't worked out, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I mean, I don't think anybody liked the pick when it happened. He was the guy coming into the draft that, like, draft Twitter was like, this guy might get drafted. He might. Like, He's a huge dude. He's a great athlete, but he's from Canada. You know, he hasn't played a lot of football. Maybe he goes in the late seventh. And we traded a third round pick to take him in the fourth. And it was like, oh my gosh. But everybody was like, well, you know what? If he turns out to be great, we don't have to worry about it. And here we are. He did not. And it's unfortunate, you know, but it just didn't work out for the Lions.
It's like
Um,
if it turned out great, then because he was left tackle in a perfect world, Sewell stays on the right side, and we could free up our first round pick and not draft Miller. As much as we like Miller, just the chain of effect there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great point because it's like that's just how the NFL works sometimes, you know. Things don't always work out. I mean, it's kind of funny to me, and this is a small tangent, but it's kind of funny to me how Lions fans like we went from sucking for so long to Brad Holmes does good for a couple years, and then he's not allowed to miss a pick again. It's like he's never allowed to draft the wrong guy. And it's like, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that 2024 draft didn't suck. It sucked. It did. There's really not a lot in that draft that we did anything with. We'll
Yeah,
see about Rakestraw, you know, and a couple other guys, but for the most part, it was not a good draft. Especially compared to how he drafted the year before or the year after. I mean, if you think about it, like, but he's allowed to have some misses. So with that said, obviously Manu, it sucks it didn't work out, but it's not like we paid him Albert Hainsworth money. You know what I mean? So luckily
that's
that
a
didn't
reference
happen.
I didn't know you would know.
Oh yeah, I watched NFL films growing up, so indoctrinated with all the history.
Say that was a. I'm curious what year that was. I'm like that was a while ago.
I want to say it was like '07, but
He
I
was the
could be
first
wrong.
player with a $100 million contract. He was the first one to hit
Hmm.
uh, three digits in the millions. Then he stepped on
Uh,
that guy's head.
that's yeah, 2009. So I was a little bit off, but
I was in high
either
school.
way, wow. See, I was 9. I was 9 years old. Yep.
Oh, thanks.
So anyway, speaking of Albert Hainsworth and free agents and things like that, if you're looking for some new gear, check out Fanatics.com. The link is in the description. They actually just had another really big sale, which I unfortunately missed, but I did spend like $80 on stuff the last time and got a bunch of stuff. So I wasn't like that mad, but they have these deals all the time. And be on the lookout because you might be able to find another 399 NFL jersey on there at some point. So link is in the description. Check them out. And if you want to run your own simulation, I know Madden just dropped, but if you're just fiending to play some Madden and you don't quite have it yet, if you don't have the early release, go ahead and check out sticktothemodel.com. The link is in the description. You can go through a full off season and a season and another off season and everything like that. It's kind of like Madden. Obviously, you just can't play the games, but it's pretty fun. So check it out. Like I said, link is in the description. And with that, moving on to Detroit Lions training camp. First, we're going to start on the offensive side of the ball, and kind of like not like speed round, but there's a lot of stuff to talk about here. So we're going to try to not spend too much time on each topic now because, like I said, so much has gone since we last saw you guys. It's been like, I almost want to say a month again, but it's probably been like 3 weeks realistically since our last podcast. Um,
Some, yeah.
so, so like we haven't seen you in a while. So there's a lot to say. Anyway, right now, just kind of running down the list, and we'll hit a couple in a row and conversate about it. But as of right now, Goff looks really sharp. Everything I've heard from Goff is that he looks really, really good. It's not like anything different from what we've been, expecting from Goff, but it sounds like it's going to be another year of that same, borderline elite play. And then on the quarterback front, Luke Altmaier is seemingly pushing for quarterback too. Now, I know he did not do that great today from what I heard, but he's a young kid facing a lot of pressure. I heard the defense won the day today, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I feel like he's one of those guys. He's a little bit older. He played some solid college ball. He played for a long time in college. He's probably coming into the NFL, at his peak. But that also means he's developed a little bit more than a lot of these guys. So I would not be that surprised if he somehow pushed Teddy Bridgewater for QB2. And I feel pretty confident we'll keep him as QB3 at least, if that doesn't happen. So really good things from our quarterback room right now. And then we'll pause there, and then we'll go kind of by position, basically.
Okay, yeah, I went to training camp on the second, and I can just tell you, granted that's one day, but I can just tell you that Altmer was significantly better than Bridgewater on that day. Bridgewater, while having, I guess I can just say composure and better pocket presence, his arm's not what it used to be. You can tell the age is wearing on him. I know he's retired and unretired probably more times than Brett Favre right now, but Altmaier was kind of moving a little bit. He moves by far. He moves the best of any of the three quarterbacks. And I also heard that he had a bad day today, but he was looking very sharp on the second when I saw him in person. He was a lot more crisp and in stride with his throws than Bridgewater was.
Yeah, and that's kind of the sentiment that I've heard is that Bridgewater. I mean, he didn't look that great last year, if I'm being honest with you. And I almost kind of feel like we brought him in to be a camp body in hopes that we could find another backup. So this might work out, perfect for us with an undrafted free agent. But again, we're going to have to see on that. But with that, moving on to the wide receiver, or actually running back, it sounds like, obviously Jameer Gibbs and things like that. We all know the whole conversation behind the running back. But something I've heard from training camp that maybe, a lot of people aren't talking about is Jabari Small. I've been hearing that name quite a bit in terms of like, okay, maybe he can do something for us. We'll have to see. Obviously, like we talked about, Jacob Sailors last year, he was kind of like that, bottom of the depth chart running back that you kind of called it. I think from what I can remember, like he looked really good in preseason, ended up making the roster, and obviously he didn't get a lot of play, but I mean, he still made the roster. So maybe we have another one of those this year, and we already talked about a few other guys too, like Blackshear. So we'll have to see. But with that, moving on to the receiver group, Greg Dortch looks like he is going to be the perfect Khalif replacement because he is a very similar player. I mean, they're basically the same size. I think he might have a little bit more, fuel or a little more burner to him than Leaf did, and he's a little younger. He's also got the familiarity with Petzing's system, so he seems to be taking a pretty big role in the offense, but also as a returner. So that's always nice. And then obviously Tesla's up and down. We've heard a lot, of not so great things about him. And then JMO, I think this is something we hear every year, and I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I'm kind of sick of hearing it. Oh, it's just JMO's breakout year, blah 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 blah. Okay, guys, did you watch the last two seasons or not? Because I feel like he already did that. He already had his breakout. It's like he's the best player in camp. Okay, that's great, but like I still need to see it on an actual NFL field outside of like two games, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I love JMO, but it's like we hear it every offseason. Man, he's so much better than everybody else. And then it's like we get in the season and it's like he has like an average of like 60 yards a game. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's his fault, but at the same time, I'm just kind of overhearing about how he's going to be Jamar Chase next year and then he has 1,100 yards. That's just
I'll say
me.
he does have back-to-back 1,000-yard years, and as a big JMO fan, he's favorite player on the team. He actually had kind of a little bit of a down day when I
Hmm.
saw him, but shit happens. You can have bad days. But the one thing I have noticed that is I would say a significant improvement as a JMO fan. Obviously, he's not perfect, but one thing I can say that I saw in person and in all the clips that the Lions and fans are posting online is it seems like he has done a large amount of work with catching with his hands. He used to be big time into the body catching, which is obviously terrible, but that's what he did. He clearly is putting emphasis on hands catching, which is great in my opinion, mandatory. And there was a clip I think it was posted today. It might have been yesterday. All the clips kind of blur together, especially on a timeline. But he had an over-the-shoulder hands catch in the end zone, and kind of fell awkwardly. And I know a lot of people were worried about his legs, but he popped up quick, so no worries there. But he, as I agree with you, I feel like he already broke out. I mean, he was top 10 in receiving yards. I would consider him a top 15 total receiver. Um, and I'd feel like in terms of like the breakout, at least statistically, is he's not just getting enough targets. But I feel like, kind of like I mentioned with Laporta, I don't think that's a skill issue. I think that's just, hey, we have Gibbs and JMO and St. Brown, and we got rid of Montgomery, but then we added Pachenko, so it's just more reps and more. There's only one ball to go around, so. Um, but that being said, he does have the back-to-back 1,000-yard years, and in totality, he has been looking better this offseason from all reports.
Right, and that's kind of my point. Is what I'm getting at. Is like I'm tired of hearing it in the off season and then not seeing it on Sundays, and I don't think that's JMO's fault. I think that's just not using him, and it comes down to why. I just don't understand in this whole thing of like, look, I love Amon Ra, dude, I do, but if JMO's better than him, why are we not getting him the ball more often? I just don't get it. Because that's what it sounds like every year. It's like JMO might be the best receiver on the Lions, and then we go out and Amon Ra has like 30 more catches at least every year. And it's like, well, sounds like they lied yet again. You know what I mean? It's kind of like Aiden Hutchinson last year, if I'm being honest with you. Like, everybody's like, dude, Aiden Hutchinson looks the best he has ever looked, period. All training camp. It was like for a month and a half, people wouldn't shut up about it. And then we come out the first 4 games, and it's just like, he's pretty good, yeah, but it's not like he's the best defensive player of all time, like you guys are making it sound. So
It's
my
not like they
point
had to
is,
make a Hutch role, you know?
yeah, right. It and my they did, and that's my point. Is that it's like, does that mean we sucked? And that's kind of my point. Is that it's like, instead, and we saw the offensive line was not that good last year. So it's like, okay, maybe we should start thinking about it that way. If JMO's cooking us every day, maybe our DBs are ass. I don't know. That's just me. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's like every day it's just, oh my God, he looks like Calvin Johnson out here. Maybe it's because our DBs are not that good. Like, and maybe Lions fans should kind of reel it in a little bit instead of being like, oh my God, we're the best team on earth coming out of training camp like we did last year. I don't know if you remember that, but it was like we played the Miami Dolphins in joint practice, and people were acting like we were
And
going
I
to win the
remember.
frickin' Super Bowl. And it's like, oh my God, here we go again. So that's where it all comes from, in my opinion, I think, is that it's just like, I'm just tired of hearing about it in the off season when we're whooping our own ass. It's like, let's see when we, play somebody how that works out, because we went 9-8 last year, and I don't know about you, but I'm not sitting here feeling like we're definitely winning the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Not
I don't
definitely.
know. I guess, like you said, you might be just drinking the Kool Aid, man. But I'm telling you, you've been a Lions fan longer than me because you're older than I am. But I
Yeah, we
feel like,
established that.
right. I just I just feel like I'm just like, dude, it's like we're the Cowboys, where it's like, it's our year, it's our year, it's our year, and it's like,
Oh,
dude,
no, we're
can we
not that
just
bad. But I I
not
totally
not
understand the
yet,
reference.
but like the Cowboys were better than us for a long time, and we made fun of them because they didn't have a Super Bowl since the '90s, and we've never won a Super Bowl. So it's kind of like levels to this shit. You know what I'm saying? They're allowed to do it more than us because they've won Super Bowls, many of them. Like we have zero, and it's like, I don't know. We've talked about it on this show many times. We get very not what's the word? I don't want to say irritated, but it's like annoyed by the fan base sometimes, because it's like, oh my God, we have so many people that just like
I'll say
lose
annoyed
it.
depending on who it is. I mean,
Right,
there's great
right,
fans that know ball, and there's terrible fans that
right.
don't and think they do, and it depends on who we're
Those are the
talking to.
worst of everything, of every sport. It's like, oh my gosh, anything. I don't care if it's a fan of a fan or a person in general. If you're talking about something you don't know what you're talking about, and you still try to pretend, insane. That's like insane to me. But anyway, moving on. The offensive line is looking very good from what I've heard. Speaking of, Aiden Hutchinson whooping our ass last year, I haven't heard as much about Aiden Hutchinson in the Hutch rule and things like that. So maybe
So
that's
he's regressed.
right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. And people are saying that. I mean, come on, we know it. But that's my point. Is it's like, okay, maybe our offensive line is just better now, and it's like it's probably a good thing that Hutch isn't looking as good, because that means, like I said, we've improved on a spot last year that was not very good. But speaking of, we've got a lot of new pieces on this offensive line. Cade Mays, it seems like he's kind of taking control of the offense and doing his thing down there at center, which was probably our biggest weak link last year. Obviously, Glasgow didn't play very good. And then Ratledge looks like he's taking the next step. I'm sure you've seen the clips and things. He's been really good. And then Blake Miller, it seems to be the clear winner at the right tackle for the spot because I know I think it was a 3-man race that they were trying to see, and it kind of felt like, okay, realistically, we know Miller's going to win this, or he should. If he doesn't beat out Larry Borum for the starting right tackle spot, we might be cooked. And that's not to say Larry Borum's bad, but I mean a top 20 pick on a tackle, like he should be pretty good. So with that, though, it does look like they have done a really good job at improving it over the offseason, and even the guys that we had already last year are improving. And of course, Penei Sewell moving to left tackle is better than Taylor Decker. So it's like, if you think about it, we could have improved at 3 out of 5, positions, and we'll see Mahogany too. I mean, or we could even have improved at 5 out of 5 positions if you think about it, because Sewell's an upgrade over Decker. Mahogany could take a next step. Cade's probably an upgrade. Ratledge should take a next step, and then obviously Blake Miller is not going to be an upgrade over Sewell, but if he can at least play up to Decker, area, then we're talking we have an overall improved line.
Absolutely. I do expect Mahogany to play better between Sewell and Mays than aging Decker. And I want to throw in aging because I don't want to completely disservice. Decker was a damn good left tackle for many years, but last year wasn't that great. So playing between, and I've been hard on Mahogany this offseason, but between now knowing what we know, it kind of puts more pieces to the puzzle and lets you see a bigger picture. But that being said, also going to camp, one of the players that stood out for me was Miles Frazier. So I know he's going to be potentially in that competition for a guard, especially if Mahogany was, granted he's off the pup or NFI, depending on whichever list it was. But Frazier kind of wowed me a little bit. He had a one-on-one rep against Moore, our rookie defensive end from Michigan, and absolutely pancaked him. Like that was your welcome to the big leagues, kid. Took your lunch and everything. It was a pretty ooh moment from the crowd when he got pancaked. And unfortunately for Moore, that was the play he got hurt on. And they did say he was only going to be out for about 7 to 10 days, which that was 5 days ago. So, I mean, he should be back any day now. But obviously, you never want to see anyone, get hurt in practice. But it was a pretty decisive rep. So Frazier is at least in the hunt, I'll say, at these positions.
Yeah, and that's really good to hear because I feel like when training camp kind of started, they weren't really giving him reps. They weren't really like working him in the rotation at left guard. And then obviously with Mahogany dealing with, his injury, they kind of were forced. And like you said, it seems like he's been showing out. So we all know this podcast is a Miles Frazier podcast. Look, we love the guy. We want him to do well. I think he should start at left guard, but we'll see.
I agree.
But, we should buy Frazier jerseys just because. Even if he never starts a game, just have one. No, honestly though, if he does start, I might. I'm not gonna lie to you. I like him a lot.
His rep against Moore was at right tackle for what it's worth because they were rotating guys in and whatnot. So.
And that's the thing I love about him. He's versatile, man. He's played, like we talked about many times, all over the O-line in college. So really liked the pick when we took it, too. So with that, though, moving on to defense, as we talked about, the defensive line looks great. It looks like McNeil is back to 100%, and Tyleik Williams has taken that next step. We heard a lot about, Tyleik Williams lost 50 pounds. And this is, again, with the overreactions of training camp, man. I love it. It's so funny to constantly see the overreactions like, he lost 50 pounds. Is he 250 pounds now? Probably not, guys. I don't think a 350-pound defensive tackle is going to weigh 250 pounds now. Regardless, was I worried about it? No, but did I think, okay, what does that mean? Does that mean we're changing our defense? Because I think that's the biggest problem is a lot of people blew it out of proportion like he's going to suck. Well, no, but I'm thinking about it like why would they ask him to lose 50 pounds? Well, then it comes out later that it's because he gained 50 pounds. So it's like, well, okay, he's back at his regular weight. All right, so this whole conversation was for nothing. Cool.
Yeah.
Sweet. Anyway, that's kind of how training camp and the off season goes in general, though. With like all sports, the off season is just a lot of there's a lot of fluff at the end of the day. So, but with that though, Hutchinson was absolutely dominant, has been dominant, but not quite to the point of last year. But he's looked really, really good. He's at that Hutch level. And then Ahmad Hassanin has played really well, from what I've heard. He has put on some weight. And transitioned to a little bit different role in the defense, and it seems like he's really doing a good job. There was a couple plays, a couple clips I saw of him like blowing up, linemen and things like that. So there's a chance he makes the 53, and I would love it because we need more bodies along that D line. So I'm definitely happy to hear that all of our guys seem to be, at their top notch.
Yeah, about Tyleek missing the 50 pounds because I know he was listed at least on his profile at 325. I was one of the people where I'm like, does that mean he's at 275? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying question mark because that's weird for a D tackle.
It is odd, and that's the thing. It's the wording, the way they said it. It's
Yeah,
like
I'm just
because they
like,
knew it would make people talk about it and stuff like that, I
yeah,
think.
I'm
But
like, I obviously have no way of knowing he gained 50 before losing the 50.
mhm.
How am I supposed to know? I don't know the guy. But unless you're watching this, we can hang out, whatever. But
All right, what's up,
I
Tyler?
wouldn't, yeah, I'm like I wouldn't be against it, But take him out to eat. But
Right. Maybe I don't think he needs it.
maybe not.
But apparently, apparently not. Might
And then
struggle with that.
in terms of Hassanine, he was a guy. I mean, I admit when I'm wrong, and don't get me wrong, I see the potential. I saw the potential when he was a rookie before he got hurt. I absolutely love his story, and I wish him nothing but success. But I did not see him taking that next step. He was a late round pick for a reason. I know he was kind of new to football. If you heard his backstory, he didn't even learn about American football, a sport, until he was already 18. And I was telling the guys I went to camp with this, and I'm like, I don't think he'll make the team, and this and this and that. And then he came out and had a pretty good practice, and he put my foot in my mouth for me pretty quick, which I am happy to be wrong about because I want the best 53 on the team. But he got, I don't want to say chewed out, but he got a little bit of an earful from Dan Campbell because he hit Pachenko. The day I went was the last day pre pads, so they were just kind of doing thump wrap up, and he gave Pachenko a pretty big shot, and it was kind of good to see just because A, the competitiveness, and B, Pachenko didn't go down. He kind of bounced off him, so regardless of that, kind of a double positive in a way. But he was pretty impressive. So a guy I kind of counted out just because we added, as I mentioned, with Manu on the O line. I feel like Hassan is kind of in that is similar because he was in the next draft class, so he doesn't have as much time. But in a similar situation where obviously Hutch has one side locked down. We already have Tyleek and McNeil in the middle. So we have a lot of guys fighting for that other defensive end spot. And not only with Hassanine, but we have DJ Wynham from Carolina who started 15 games in the NFL last year. We have second round pick Derek Moore that I already mentioned. So it is kind of clustered over there. So you are really going to have to show something to kind of peek out amongst the crowd. And in my very limited viewing, since it was one practice, he looked pretty good, and I've seen things online from other people, other fans who have been there on other days, saying that he has looked good on those days as well. So who knows? Maybe he'll prove me wrong. Like I said, I hope he does. Um, but yeah, it would be a great story if we can get even just a rotational pass rusher out of him.
Yeah, definitely, and I definitely agree. I like his story a lot, so it would be cool to see. And now with that, moving on to DBs, it looks like Nick Whiteside is getting some more opportunities and look pretty good with them. Who knows? Maybe he can kind of step up for us. We obviously need somebody to take on some of that Terrion Arnold role, which I do think there is a high chance Rakestraw ends up being that guy, which he's also looked really good. Keith Abney's looked really good. So it sounds like the cornerback battle is real. Even without Arnold, we're still going to have some real competition there. So that's always good. Um, obviously with the team, we already had some issues at corner, and DJ Reed has is dealing with some injuries right now. So seeing these guys kind of step up makes a big difference in my opinion, because as we all know, depth is very very necessary, especially when you're the Detroit Lions, because apparently we always have more injuries than everybody else, for whatever reason that is. Um,
Not San
and it
Francisco.
Right. That's
I'm
true. I
just
was
kidding.
gonna say, and it's not because we're practicing next to a power plant, so I don't know what the problem is here. At least over there, they know why. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, well, yeah, well, the power plant. You might tear your Achilles. It's all right. We'll pay you an extra 10 mil. Don't worry. Um, but with that, obviously, like I said, it's just nice, to have some good depth, even though we had some pretty big problems with that position this offseason.
I am terribly sorry. I just was reading something and lost track. Other than I
I was just
remember
talking about corner depth.
corner depth, surprising. I was actually debating internally whether I was pleasantly surprised by our corner depth the way when I saw in camp, or upset with our receiver depth because the corners won the day. So on paper, corners probably our weakest position, or just defensive backs as a whole, just due to injuries. The Terry and Arnold situation, obviously, he's no longer here. I like Reed, but he's been a number two his whole career. Rakestraw, who was my comeback player candidate last year for breakout, got hurt again and just unfortunately didn't play. Looks like I might have been a year early because he's looking pretty good right now. And then I like Rocky Yassin, but I don't know if he's an everyday, starter and whatnot. So I came in with definite question marks on the defensive backs, while we obviously know what our receivers have. And the defensive backs is in totality, because don't get me wrong, St. Brown was St. Brown, but the defensive backs won the day in my opinion. A lot of one-on-one matchups, a lot of even the starters like McQuarrie had a very good rep against JMO and jammed him at the line and really didn't let him get off. And as much as I love JMO, you can only use your speed if you can get in space. So it was somewhat upsetting as a JMO fan, but at the same time, I'm like, maybe we just have a good corner. Like, let's see where we're at with there, because we know JMO can play in the league, obviously.
I
And
Not to interrupt you,
oh,
I
go ahead.
will say the rep I saw was PI. So there was a rep that everybody was like, "Oh, Rake locked him." It was a little.
Diving end zone one.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
a
that was
little.
PI.
I'm like, all right, but there was obviously other ones that were really good. But either way, it's nice to see that competition, obviously, and then when they dap each other up afterwards, and like you mentioned, they've been kind of helping each other out throughout the offseason too. So
Absolutely. JMO's taken on a much bigger like leadership role, but I'm not going to. That's a whole nother topic. But yeah, the defensive backs as a whole surprised me. And one other guy that surprised me and kind of won the day slash stood out was Abney, the rookie. He did not get any. I don't think he got any reps with the ones, but with the twos and threes, he played with both. He was standing out against Bridgewater and Altmer, and he had one interception, and the very next play they tried him again. He hit a PBU in the 7-on-7s. So he's been looking pretty good from what I've seen in camp.
yeah, and obviously, that's always nice, especially considering we got him in the fifth round, and he was a guy a lot of people saw as like a second round pick. So he could be a guy that surprises, and which maybe isn't really a surprise since we kind of think he should be pretty good, but maybe he surprises the NFL as a whole. But with that, moving on to today's scrimmage specifically, the biggest takeaways I have. Defense won the day overall. Hutch was just dominant overall. McNeil and Williams obviously caused issues. Overall, the defensive line, another really, really great day. Altmaier struggled a little bit. Obviously, we mentioned DJ Reed out, and man, the injuries are just piling up. The injury list is so long at this point, like it would take me another hour to read it off. Because that's where we're at with the Lions, man. It's training camp, and look, it's not like there's 8 dudes with torn Achilles or anything like that. It's like a bunch of like bumps and bruises and things, but still, it's never good to have a laundry list of injuries. But with that, That's all I got for it. I'm sure you have something else to add as well.
The only thing else I have to add, because while we went through positions and whatnot, I've covered everything else. But the only other player I wanted to give a shout out for what I saw in person was Eric Hunter, the linebacker
Hmm.
from Morgan State. He looked very good. He did not look out of place. Once again, kind of like Abney, he was running with the twos and threes, so it's not like he was covering Laporta and whatnot. But he was very sticky when assigned to like Brock Wright and whatnot. So I feel like for the day at least, because once again, that's all I have to judge him on. He did not look out of place. So I know he was setting records and whatnot at Morgan State, but being a D2 college, we've seen people go from D2 to the NFL, Trey Lance, and just not really translate the skill set. And give me a head shake. Was he not D2?
Not D2, FCS.
Oh, FCS. My bad. Okay. I
They
stand
both
corrected.
are, I think, actually. I think Morgantown might be FCS too. Actually, I'll just look it up. I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. I'm like, do fact check that. Yeah, because I know it was Morgan State.
Or Morgan State, okay.
And Morgan State. Bears.
I don't know why I said Morgantown. You literally just said Morgan State. Uh, FCS.
FC. Okay, well, same conference. Okay. So instead of D2, both came from FCS. And yeah, it doesn't always translate, but he had a very nice practice, and I have heard his name a little bit. In fact, a friend of mine on Twitter was at the practice today and posted that Devin White got an interception off Goff in the red zone, and then they were playing on the farther field, and about an hour later he said, correction, it was actually Hunter that intercepted Goff
Mm.
in the red zone because White is 45 and Hunter is 48, and from that distance with the block numbers, it just kind of meshed in. So I'm like, either way, I'm like, it's one of the two linebackers that we've kind of highlighted
And they're
in the
both
show.
just jacked as hell too. So it's
Yeah,
like
I'm
the
like, they're
physiques
both
are
just
very similar.
very physical specimens. So I'm
Yeah.
just like, but hey, look at that undrafted free agent rookie, then intercepting Golf in a
Hmm.
red zone trail. So, I mean, like I said, one day, one practice. You got to, stack the days on top of each other. But so far, so good. I do think he has a shot at making this roster.
Yeah, and he's one of those guys that kind of, I was excited about when the UDFAs came out because, like you said, FCS school, but man, he was very good at that FCS school and he tested really well. So, a good athlete, good player. I mean, I don't really see why he can't do well. We'll just have to see though. So, with that though, that's got too ahead of myself. So, before we move on, or before we end the show, let's talk about last night's preseason just a little bit. The thing that stood out to me, obviously, was the quarterbacks. And not just, Haynes King and Carson Beck, but Keaton Slovis as well. I feel like the quarterbacks in general last night were a lot better than most preseason quarterbacks, especially considering two of them were rookies. Obviously, Carson Beck had what? Yeah, 15 for 19, 188 yards and a touchdown with a 125.4 rating. That's pretty damn good. Okay, obviously it's preseason. He's going against backups and things, but still, that's pretty good. Keaton Slovis, 9 for 10, 106 yards and a touchdown, 144.2 rating. Pretty good. Wouldn't complain about that if I was a Cardinals fan.
Yeah,
Uh,
90% completion percentage from your QB3. I would not complain about that.
It's nuts. And then the freaking Panthers, Haynes King, obviously his completion percentage wasn't as good, 21 for 34, but 180 yards and two touchdowns. And he had the game winning scramble at the end there. So, he did a lot for him. And then Kenny Pickett, 8 for 11 for 62 yards. So, not a lot of bad quarterback play last night. And I mean, I think that's what it came down to. That's why the game was a fun one and why it was 33-30. Because, in my opinion, the NFL right now is seeing something we haven't really seen before. Uh, Teams like, other than the Miami Dolphins, not a lot of teams suck, like genuinely suck. There are so many, there are so many good players now that yeah, you might be 3-14, but I genuinely think a 3-14 team from today would probably beat some of the 500 teams from the mid 2000s because of
Oh,
how
absolutely.
the disparity in talent now is crazy. Like playing Madden 27 today, and this random, but I was trying to trade a quarterback. I couldn't find anybody to trade him with because everybody's got one. And when was the last time that we could legitimately say every NFL team right now has a competent starting quarterback?
There's
Not
one that
great.
comes to mind.
Who? Is
Jets.
it Geno Smith?
He's,
He's
yeah.
competent. He's competent. He's competent, bro. He was almost elite with the Seahawks. Like, and
That's
that's
a
my
couple
thing
years
is
ago.
that it was 2 years ago. It was not that long. He's only with the Raiders for a year or 2 years. Anyway, point being that he isn't great, but the point that I'm making is they're also not a team that's going to go trade for the quarterback that, in real life, whatever. Point being, there's not like, I don't know if you remember even 5 years ago, we probably had 5 or 6 teams in the NFL that it was like, their quarterback sucks. You know what I mean? And now it's like you got the Vikings who have two that could kind of start. There's a couple teams that have multiple. So it's like, obviously, we're not talking MVP level or anything, but I just think in general, there's way more talent nowadays. So you see, a lot more. I hope we will see a lot more fun preseason games. That's what I was getting at. Was I do think this disparity or lack of disparity in talent will kind of make it a little bit more fun in the preseason.
Absolutely, and it does help that some quarterbacks that have had, I guess I would just say down seasons slash careers, kind of just spike out of nowhere, like Sam Darnold.
Hmm.
Like he had, 6-ish years of looking like a bust and Super Bowl champion now, and looked good with Minnesota. Obviously, looked good with Seattle. So don't really know where that came from, but hey, good on him. But
Honestly, I think it comes from coaches not trying to force players to do stuff they can't do. I think a lot of it comes down to old school coaches. They do things their way and they want it done that way. That's it. You draft a quarterback, they instead of doing what that quarterback's good at, they try to mold the quarterback to fit their system. Nowadays, they just offensive guys are smart enough they don't have to run specifically their stuff. They run stuff that they like, but for a specific quarterback. So, I mean, that's why Sam Darnold, in Minnesota, he was not that good in Carolina. He was not that good in New York. He was okay in San Francisco. Then he got the chance in Minnesota and played really well. Then he goes to Seattle and plays really well again. I don't think it's a coincidence that he played the best with the two best offensive minds he's ever played with. You know what I mean? And it's not because his physical changed. That I think it's just, comfortable with the scheme. He's got more confident throws. Like I think that's what it comes down to is back in the day, we just had a lot of stubborn ass offensive coaches that did not want to change. And it kind of ruined development.
fair enough. I'll say the other thing I took out of last night's game, and kind of on a random note, but just kind of a ode to Lions fans, is you can see former Lions players. Like Carolina has James Mitchell, our former tight end,
Hmm.
and the Cardinals' leading rusher was Bam Knight. I know he only had one season here, if you can even call it a whole season, but he had 60 yards on the ground, being the leading rusher for the Cardinals last night.
Yeah. And with that, that's all we got for today, folks. We will probably not be back next week because I have two-a-day practices exactly when we would be doing our show. So we will probably be back the week after that, but we will have to figure out scheduling with the football season beginning for me as well as the NFL. So it's been 3 years, though. We figured it out. So we'll just have to see. But with that, we appreciate you guys for watching. As always, check out Fanatics. Check out sticktothemodel.com. Links are in the description. You can find me at JSoSweet. You can find James at Gullet_James. You can find us both at MIFB Network and MichiganFootballNetwork.com. And we